It really makes me like never want to critique manga ever again because these motherfuckers are out here sacrificing so much, doing their best. It can literally put a pressure this great on people that they would rather not even draw it anymore. Why a manga genius abandon his masterpiece? I don't even really know which one he's talking about, but let's find out.
Hiatus, a word most manga fans are familiar with.
Unfortunate.
Due to the intense physical and mental demands of creating manga, most series experience a hiatus once or twice during publication, but there are a few series that probably come to mind above all. Hunter x Hunter, Berserk, and Vagabond. While all three are known for extensive and frequent hiatuses, one of them stands out. Hunter x Hunter has spent most of its lifespan on hiatus.
Whoa, is it Vagabond? Hunter x Hunter, Vagabond, and Berserk.
And frequent hiatuses, one of them stands out. Hunter x Hunter has spent most of its lifespan on hiatus, but every year or so Togashi releases a batch of chapters. As a matter of fact, just recently he posted a picture of himself working on
I remember that. Everybody was like, yo! And then it didn't end up being like hardly anything, right? Wait, Hunter x Hunter is back this week? Yo!
Twitter. Berserk also spent many years on and off hiatus, but with Miura's unfortunate passing a few years ago, the reins shifted to Studio Gaga. And they have been releasing chapters more or less regularly ever since. So that
do we have any Berserk readers in here? And if we do, are they continuing like the story like you think the original author Miura would do?
Studio Gaga, and they have been releasing chapters more or less regularly.
Studio Gaga.
Unfortunate passing a few years ago, the reins shifted to Studio Gaga, and they have been releasing chapters more or less regularly ever since. So that leaves Vagabond, which hasn't seen
so far. Okay, cool.
A new chapter since 2015.
Damn, 2015?
Inoue has finished manga before, massively popular and critically acclaimed ones at that. He's also still working on another series, albeit very infrequently, which
Vagabond fans are in shambles.
Was last updated as recently as a few months ago. So why has Vagabond, viewed by most as his greatest work, Inoue himself included, been untouched for the better part of a decade? What led to this man practically abandoning his masterpiece?
Damn.
Well, to understand that, we have to go back to the beginning.
I'm so curious. What happened? I have the whole set too. Oh, we in Japan. Chat, I want to go to Japan so bad. I've watched videos on Japan since I was like 16, 17. (1967). What?
Inoue was born January 12th of 1967 in Kagoshima, a prefecture
We
of the
going
southern
way
tip
back.
of Japan's Kyushu Island. From an early age, Inoue was fond of drawing, and he always assumed he would work in some artistic field, but he was unsure of which direction he would take. Despite reading manga as most kids did, becoming a manga artist wouldn't be a thought in his mind until years later. It was the experiences he had in high school that eventually led him down this path. In junior high, Inoue would join both the kendo and basketball clubs at his school, the latter in order to impress girls. Does that sound familiar? Similar to the main character of his manga Slam Dunk, he joined for
Bro, Slam Dunk was just a biography.
Found himself falling in love with the sport and growing immensely because of it. His team was not very good. They lost more than they won, but through all the losses and the
I thought he's about to be sick with it.
Because of it. His team was not very
good.
Bro
got the Dewey on.
Lost more than they won, but through all the losses and the occasional wins, he learned many things. He came to greatly appreciate the progress he made with his team, something he would hold on to all his life and eventually put in his manga. This energy was also something he found in a certain manga series. Around this time, Inoue discovered Dokuben, a baseball manga created by Shinji Mizushima. The manga displayed an immense passion for team sports, something Inoue himself had just recently developed.
It's insane how influential like things are, like media that come out are, that like the next generation just don't even know about. Like I've never even seen this, but it was something that was super influential on him because of the time he was born.
The manga displayed an immense passion for team sports.
And then he went on to be super influential for so many people with Vagabond and Slam Dunk.
Himself had just recently developed, and immediately Inoue felt a connection to the story. It's hard to find out much about this series online. All I could find were some scans of the manga as it was originally published, meaning in Japanese. But what I could make out from the illustrations was that a rough, delinquent
wasn't even translated
into this high school and joins a baseball team. Now pairing that with Inoue's experience in his high school basketball club, we get a pretty vivid picture of how Slam Dunk was formed, though it would be quite some time before that would happen. Inoue's discovery of Dokuben is almost certainly what set him down the path of becoming a manga artist. It came at the perfect time, a transitional period where he was unsure of the direction he wanted to take with his life. At the end of his senior year in high school, Inoue came to an impasse. He desperately wanted to become an artist, but he felt his skills weren't at a high enough level to pursue fine arts in university. This is a bit ironic looking back because Inoue has some of the most stunning, picturesque art in the medium. But back then,
yeah, he does.
That style is something he would develop after.
I haven't read Vagabond, but there's few like manga panels I have seen, I'm just like, I gotta stare at them for like 10 minutes just to appreciate the details.
Instead of taking any formal art training save for a prep school course in the summer of his senior year, Inoue went to Kumamoto University to study literature. Now, you may be thinking this is where he developed his phenomenal writing skills, his ability to create intensely emotional characters and philosophical plotlines, but it's not. Inoue dropped out before even completing his first year. You see, while he was studying, Inoue was sending manuscripts to Shonen Jump rookie contests. Within a few months, his work was noticed by editor Taizo Nakamura, who not only encouraged him to continue drawing, but also got him a gig as an assistant on a popular series titled City Hunter, created by Hojo Tsukasa. It's under Tsukasa's wing that Inoue would really begin to flourish, spending 10 or so months learning from a bona fide and popular pro. The following year,
So many
1988,
mangakas
Inoue
like started working under somebody big at the time.
would submit a one-shot titled Kade Purple to Shueisha for the semi-annual Tezuka contest, and he'd go on to win the grand prize. This award is a massive step for manga artists, and it served to launch the careers of many of the most successful creators the medium has ever seen. Yoshihiro Togashi, Takeshi Obata, Masanori Morita, Hiroyuki Takei, and of course Inoue himself. Needless to say, the award itself was a huge milestone for Inoue, but the work he submitted was equally as, if not more important. Sports manga have always been popular, but prior to Kade Purple, there had never been one about basketball, Inoue's most cherished sport. With the
There
major
was
success
never
of the
one about
one-shot, Inoue was
basketball,
ready to
wow.
take on a serialization.
So is
taking
Slam Dunk the first basketball manga?
all he had learned and using the knowledge that a basketball manga would do well, Inoue began working on Chameleon Jail. I'll bet you thought I was going to say Slam Dunk, and honestly I was a bit shocked to learn of this series too, but Slam Dunk wouldn't start until the following year. Inoue worked as the illustrator alongside Kazuhiko Watanabe on Chameleon Jail, a story about a shape-shifting detective from the end of July to October 16th of 1989. It lasted only a couple volumes, so clearly it was not a big success.
Damn,
Little is known
that's
about
tough.
the creative process behind this obscure manga from the 80s, but based on the following trajectory of Inoue's career, one can only assume the experience on the series convinced Inoue that it would be best to work alone. And boy, was that ever a good decision, because his next work would explode into Japan's cultural zeitgeist and leave an impact that lasts to this day.
Jeez. Slam Dunk was huge. I haven't seen it, but
In
this makes me want to
1990,
watch it
Inoue
so
began
bad.
Slam Dunk. This series combines everything Inoue has learned about manga with his immense passion for the sport of basketball into what is arguably, and you'd have a damn easy time making this argument, the greatest sports manga of all time. Slam Dunk was a
Damn.
massive success almost instantly. Its eye-catching art and lovable characters grasped audience attention and never let go. Slam Dunk follows Sakuragi Hanamichi, a rather slow delinquent teen who joins his high school's basketball team in order to impress a girl, only he has no skills for the sport whatsoever. As the plot progresses, Sakuragi grows both in skill and as a person, and comes to form indestructible bonds with. It's an underdog story through and through. Sakuragi's unabating efforts to improve deeply resonated with the Japanese readers. It took only a few months of publication for Inoue to begin receiving letters from fans describing how much they loved the story, and more importantly, how it inspired them to take up playing basketball. Deeply moved, Inoue would pour even more of his heart into the story. 3 years later, Slam Dunk would
Most
get
of the recent gym songs on there, though, are from the Broly soundtrack. Z Broly.
TV anime adaptation, sending basketball's popularity in Japan to the f***ing moon. I could go into much more detail about the cultural
Damn, so
reference
Slam
sending
Dunk
Book pour
sent
even more of his
basketball
heart into the story.
popularity in
3 years
Japan.
later, Slam Dunk would get a TV anime adaptation, sending basketball's popularity in Japan to the f***ing moon.
Damn.
I could go
So
into much more
influential.
detail about the cultural revolution behind this manga, but that isn't exactly what this
Cultural revolution. Dude, I had no idea. What the fuck? Slam Dunk was a cultural revolution for basketball in Japan.
about. Still, this is important context for Inoue's career.
That's
so
how
let's
they're
do a rapid fire
okay. That is how they're gonna talk about One Piece in history books, bro.
round of facts. Between 1990 and 1995, over 1 million Japanese citizens began playing basketball through high school and recreational leagues. Volumes 21
Holy
for 1 million
shit.
for Inoue's career, so let's do a rapid-fire round of facts. Between 1990 and 1995, over 1 million Japanese citizens began playing basketball through high school and recreational leagues. Volumes 21 through 23 shattered the initial book print run with 2.5 million copies each, a record that wouldn't be broken until 2002 by a certain pirate manga. In 1994, the series was awarded the 40th Annual Shogakukan Award in the Shonen category.
Holy
Slam Dunk remains
shit.
to this day, 30 years later, the best-selling sports manga of all time with over 170 million copies in circulation worldwide. Slam Dunk was the first manga Inoue put his all into. He pulled
That's
things out of his heart and
insane.
soul, threw them on the page, and sold millions of copies. His deep, intense love for the sport is evident all the way through to the end of the series and even past into his
Chat, do I have to watch Slam Dunk at this point?
later career.
This is the
It
best sports anime manga ever?
wouldn't be ridiculous to claim that he might have even more passion for basketball than manga. Following the very, very successful years of Slam Dunk's publication, Inoue would launch a short online manga called Buzzer Beater. Again, the story was about basketball. That bug just couldn't escape his mind. He loved it way too much. But it would only last 2 years, 4 volumes total. After Buzzer Beater, Inoue was hardly drawing anything and was seriously considering just ending his manga career. That was when an
Damn.
editor handed him a novel. There was no intention to spark inspiration. He did this simply to help Inoue kill time. That novel was Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa, a fictionalization of famed philosopher Miyamoto Musashi's life. Inoue cracked the book open, began reading, and was awestruck. His hands started shaking with
I
the
know a
desire
little
to
bit
draw
about
his character.
Miyamoto Musashi, like the guy that Vagabond is based on too. He wrote the Book of Five Rings, yeah. And I think he's kind of like, in my mind, this is not accurate or scientific or factual, okay? In my mind, the real life samurai guy who this was based off of was kind of similar to Stoicism, try not and slightly kind of like Buddhism as well, where like you don't give in. And I don't know much about either one, okay? But you don't give in to your temptations, and you try to resist, and you have control of your emotions. But like I said, my knowledge is not great on that. That's just like my understanding of it. And it's like a philosophy. It's like his philosophy, and he was a samurai that like never lost battles and was fucking badass.
Later that year, Vagabond would begin publication.
Vagabond! Dude, look at the art!
From page 1, the impact Yoshikawa's novel had on Inoue is evident. Inoue said he wanted to draw these characters and this story, but when you read Vagabond, it seems more like he was born to do so. Feudal Japan is illustrated with incredible detail. The series is filled with many stunning illustrations of nature.
Like that-
Feudal Japan is illustrated with
Like this just looks like... It looks like somebody took a picture.
incredible detail.
That's how much detail. Like that's so crazy.
The series is filled with many stunning illustrations of nature that sometimes focus on small details, such as a blade of grass or a droplet of rain with precision that seems inhuman. Incredibly, this level of detail would remain throughout the series even after he switched from using pens to brushes for the art. With the brush lacking control, it makes up for with line fluidity. Inoue's line work is so seamless it almost feels
Interesting.
like breathing, but somehow Inoue manages to keep the same detail with his brushwork that he had with his pens. How? I couldn't begin to tell you, but why he made that choice? That I can. See, Inoue was inspired by the director Akira Kurosawa, who has such an incredible laundry list that we'd be here for hours if I went through it. But Kurosawa produced the most iconic samurai movies of all time, so naturally Inoue saw it as the gold standard and wanted his work to be reminiscent of it. The switch over to brushes was in order to capture that gritty, dark feeling Kurosawa's
That is
embodied.
super
But
cool.
reading through Vagabond, it's clear Kurosawa had a large impact on the way Vagabond is laid out. Vagabond, as a samurai story, of course has many battle scenes. Every last one of them is illustrated beautifully and paneled in a way that flows like you're watching a film. Having just worked on a sports manga, something that obviously includes a lot of physical
Damn, dude.
activity, Inoue mastered the ability to accurately depict the human body's movement, pairing that with the subject matter and
How do they... When they say he used a brush versus a pen, how do they, like, print the brush? I don't really get it.
inspirations of Vagabond, Inoue created a samurai story Kurosawa himself would have in all likelihood very much appreciated. Inoue
What do you mean? Oh, I guess it'd be the same way they... Wait, how? I don't really understand the manga process, actually, I guess, now that I'm realizing it. Do they, like, just draw it and then scan it? Either way? Yes? Oh. Do you... I guess do you lose a lot of quality with that? Or do you lose any detail? Like, if you have the original, like, is the scan 1-to-1?
had a lot to say with Vagabond. He wanted to cover more complex concepts such as life and death and the human condition, but he also felt that the Japanese people had lost touch with their history.
Brushes just use ink. Brushes use ink like pen. Oh, right. I guess painting is just ink. More ink? I don't really know. I never really thought about that.
He himself certainly had, so he hoped death and the human condition. But Inoue had a lot to say with Vagabond. He wanted to cover more complex concepts such as life and death and the human condition, but he also felt that the Japanese people had lost touch with their history. He himself certainly had, so he hoped that he could spark some interest in it through Vagabond. Well, that he certainly did. Vagabond was a massive success. In the year 2000, he won the grand prize.
He always has a motive. It's really cool.
Media Arts Festival. Later that year, Vagabond won the 24th annual Kodansha Manga Award in the general category. 2 years after that, Vagabond won Inoue the grand prize of the 6th Tezuka Osamu Cultural Award, which is one of the most, if not the most, prestigious award in manga. But before all that, Inoue would start up a second series in 1999, running in tandem with Vagabond. This series was titled Real. It follows 3 high school students, 2 of which are wheelchair-bound, who make efforts to better themselves through the sport of basketball. After seeing televised games of wheelchair basketball, Inoue was inspired. He saw these athletes pursuing the sport they and Inoue alike love in spite of their physical condition, and he needed to draw it. Real is an intensely emotional story, one that confronts some of the hardest subjects in life. Characters experience an array of struggles and emotions. They face the fear that they are not enough, question whether they even can be enough because of their their disabilities, but continue to try
man.
regardless of any of that. Vagabond and Real are both stories that do an incredible job of exploring the human
Just
condition,
that-
what it means to live,
Just
how
that
one should go
concept
about
is such a... You can tell that concept is going to be an emotional ass story.
but they do it from two different perspectives.
Emotional ride.
Vagabond is a very solitary story. It follows one man on a self-centered path who through his isolation comes to realize the error in his ways, whereas Real follows multiple characters who feel limited by their own condition, and it is through other people that they grow. This is speculation, but with what we know about Inoue's life, how he values team sports and the bonds formed from them, it seems likely that Real's way of addressing these topics was more personal and approachable to Inoue. There's also no denying Inoue's love for basketball as a sport. Regardless, both series would continue to be massively successful, winning awards and selling millions of copies, neatly coexisting for over a decade, but I think we all know where this is going.
Right. Why is he on hiatus now?
In April of 2009,
Damn,
Inoue
bro really hooked. He got me with that hook, man. Deep in that bitch. Deep in my cheek, man. He got me learning all about this, man. I just wanted to know that one answer at the beginning. But now I feel like I'm an expert on this guy.
was interviewed by Japanese newspaper Nihon Ippon Shimbun. That was very hard to pronounce for
But to
me.
be like, I don't want to give the wrong impression. I fucking love learning about this.
At this time, both Real and Vagabond were being regularly and successfully published. Inoue tells the interviewer that he suspects Vagabond will end in a year or two. Though he wasn't exactly sure of how it would end, he was certain that the pieces of his story were taking their final positions. The next year, 2010, Inoue reaffirms what he said in the interview, but that summer, Inoue falls ill and both his series go on hiatus. In October, he holds another interview where he states his health is much better and speaks on the state of Vagabond. But you must feel the desire to draw manga though, right? Vagabond in particular. The interviewer asks. I'd reached a point where I wasn't even sure of that. I became unsure of where I was heading. Couldn't even remember where I'd started from in the first place. That's how busy I was. I was stuck doing the work for external factors for so long that I'd forgotten to look inside myself. Inoue responds. He then adds, well, speaking in terms...
Feels like the classic mangaka being treated unlike a human, which is very unfortunate.
What I want to do. As I said before, I really don't at all have the urge to work on it right now. But I do know that if I don't work on it, I'll be in trouble down the road. And that's basically what was keeping me going until I went on hiatus. I don't think that's a good way of going about it. My hope is to stay away from Vagabond until all those unnecessary worries and emotions are gone, and I'm ready to draw it because I want to draw it. I'm not sure if I'll be allowed to wait that long though.
Damn.
December of 2010, Real resumes publication. Vagabond stays on hiatus. Inoue posts to his blog saying Vagabond will stay on hiatus until he regains enthusiasm for the series. When asked why that is the case and if working on the two series is so different, Inoue responds. Totally different. With Real, I almost never worry about trying to do something completely original or express things stylishly, or at least I don't in terms of the artwork anyway. Vagabond is where...
So he literally, he understands how good his Vagabond manga looks and how deep I'm assuming the story is, and he has these insane pressures to keep up that quality. And he knows what that takes, and he knows he would rather just not even do it than give something subpar, which is insane. And it's really insane to think about how a mangaka this great can feel like this. And it kind of gives you a little insight on, like, almost Oda, too. You can kind of almost extrapolate that, I guess. Because Oda, like, it makes you appreciate how long he's been doing it and how the story that he's writing, even though we just watched a video of somebody complaining about the character that he literally wrote. It really makes me like never want to critique manga ever again, because these motherfuckers are out here sacrificing so much, doing their best, that it will it can literally put a pressure this great on people that they would rather not even draw it anymore. Yeah, I don't know. That's just such a crazy concept.
We're trying to do something completely original or express things stylishly, or at least I don't in terms of the artwork anyway. Vagabond is where I try to do new things with the art and draw the best that I can. So in that sense, drawing is pure enjoyment, whereas Real is me drawing squarely within the art and draw the best things stylishly, or at least I don't in terms of the artwork anyway. Vagabond is where I try to do new things with the art and draw the best that I can. So in that sense, drawing is pure enjoyment, whereas Real is me drawing squarely within my normal capabilities. It's like I've got two different modes. The process is almost like cooking with Real. Vagabond is something more personal. There's no formula. It feels like I'm making something that's not quite manga.
Not
Vagabond
quite
is almost something
manga.
like running around a mountain or swimming in a river, and that there are no rules, but I have to use everything I have in me, in every situation, which is also what's so exhausting about it. I've been putting a ton of effort into the whole manga process for Real lately, and I've rediscovered a joy in it that Vagabond never gave me. The joy of manga and being a professional manga artist. It must be how everyone else feels when they're drawing manga. Inoue seems to see working on Vagabond as a pursuit of perfection, or if not that, then something quite close. He feels this pressure to make...
That's crazy. That's crazy. something so beloved by others can be so hated by the creator.
It originated-
Not hated, you know what I'm saying, but like it literally felt like it wasn't him drawing manga. It was not fun. It wasn't great.
and as good as it can possibly be. After recovering from an illness, he had no motivation to work on Vagabond because of that self-imposed pressure, but with Real, he felt he could just enjoy drawing manga. It came to him easier, and I think that the content of the story, being basketball, improving oneself through an activity...
I think he just loved basketball, man.
Within his
One thing will never change about him, he loved basketball.
interest, but with where he was at creatively, he was trying to learn to enjoy drawing manga again, to improve his approach to working on his manga just like his characters in Real. Vagabond would remain on hiatus until March of 2012 with the release of Chapter 301. All the while, Real would continue its publication with a new chapter every month or so. It wasn't a completely regular schedule, but it was being published nonetheless. When Vagabond returned in 2012, it stayed until 2014, releasing nearly 3 full volumes worth of chapters. In February of 2014, following the release of Chapter 322, Inoue announced the series would be going on a 4-month hiatus for research purposes. That hiatus lasted nearly a year. In January of 2015, Inoue released Chapter 323. In February, 324. March, 325. April, 326. May, 327. And that was the final chapter ever released. At this point, Real also began a long hiatus. No chapter.
So
was seen until
he kind of gave it a one last final couple manga, a couple volumes and chapters after that quote.
2019, and that year saw only 3. Chapters 85 through 93 of Real were published between 2019 and 2021. Chapter 9 was published earlier this year.
Recent.
Inoue's manga all saw great
Nice.
success. He loved the stories he created, so why? It's hard to say why someone does or doesn't do something when you're not that person, but what isn't hard to say is that writing is hard. Writing good stuff is, anyway.
Yeah.
Anyone can write some schlock and ship it off to publishers, but that isn't what Inoue has been working with. In his hands, Inoue has a masterpiece. It's clear he holds Vagabond with an extreme level of reverence in his mind, and when both a wide audience and you yourself view the thing you've created as an important piece of art, the pressure is just unimaginable. Based on what he has said, it's clear Inoue refuses to continue Vagabond unless what he creates is absolutely perfect, an ideal that is made all the more hard to obtain by the pressure he puts on himself, one that is also exacerbated by the expectations of millions of fans waiting around the world, an expectation that increases as every single day passes. For Inoue, it is easier to fall back on Real, a story that does not have those personal and worldwide expectations on it, a story he actually enjoys writing, not doing so under the ever-present shadow of perfection like he has to do with Vagabond. As consumers, it's easy for us to sit in our lazy boy recliners and complain about the lazy writer. Draw the manga already, just write.
Yeah, that's true. So many people, especially YouTubers.
Of winter, George. Just get to it. What's the deal? But what we don't see and what we don't understand are the years of effort, blood, sweat, tears, pain, research, dedication that went into building these stories up to how well regarded they are now, and how the fear of not being able to conclude all that in a satisfying way, not even for the readers, but for the sake of the art, for the story itself, is crippling. No amount of reassurance from fans or editors or whoever is going to change the fact that if Inoue isn't 100% satisfied with every last panel, every last line he draws, he is going to regret it for the rest of his life. To you, that might seem a bit overkill, but to him, to anyone who puts their soul into something, that is the bare minimum, and anything less would be a complete disgrace. So to answer the question I asked at the beginning, why did Inoue practically abandon Vagabond? Well, because perfecting your life's work, something many people consider a masterpiece, is the most frightening and daunting task a creative mind can face. It's not pathetic to be afraid in the face of that, nor should he be condemned for it. All artists and writers are people too. That fact doesn't change just because they reach some literary pinnacle. They don't suddenly become writing gods capable of overcoming monumental things the average person could not. Inoue is still that same kid, fresh out of high school, afraid his skills aren't good enough to pursue what he wants to do.
This is a good-ass
video.
video.
That same kid that experienced many of his happiest moments of his life on his high school basketball court. Basketball is possibly his biggest passion, and he has a deeply personal ongoing work about it to fall back on when he feels incapable of drawing Vagabond. And that's fine. Does that mean Vagabond will never return? No, absolutely not, and I guess it isn't really fair to say he abandoned it, though that makes for quite the catching title. Last year, with the release of the new Slam Dunk movie, Inoue did an interview in which he commented on the state of Vagabond.
There was a Slam Dunk movie?
What he said is that he fully intends to return to the series and in the near future too. Whether that means a year, 2, 5, nobody can tell, but not all hope is lost. He hasn't just given up completely, but he has wavered under the immense pressure that comes with creating such a piece of work, which is a very normal human thing to do. So as fans, we should eagerly await the manga's return while showing some compassion for the person behind it.
Good. That's a good ass video, man. I love that message, that story. Have some damn compassion for these mangakas, these manga writers who already get treated inhumanely by their publishers and pushed so hard. And that's just the publishers. Even if you make peak, there's always going to be a plethora of people always shitting on it. Like always. I can't even imagine. So that's a good ass video.